In our gospel reading today, Matthew tells us that Jesus had compassion on the crowds and that followed him because they were distressed and dejected, like sheep without a shepherd. They were a group of people that were cast aside. They were lost with no hope. They were victims of a divided and conquered world. We live in a world of unpredictability. We are also in a world that we have all the connectivity that we could possibly ever wanted. We are so interconnected with one another. Yet we seem sometimes totally isolated. So many people of our world today are connected through Facebook, through all their social types of media, text messaging, cell phones. It's just at the palm of our hand. But yet we're isolated and we're alone. And so many of us feel this way. We have created so many things that should bring us together, yet in many ways become the place in which we most often tear ourselves apart. Facebook allows us to follow like we are connected, to feel like we are connected to hundreds, even thousands of friends. But the unfollow feature allows us to live only in an echo chamber of our own idolatry and our own ideologies. We can have these friends that we are so-called friends with, but we don't really have to listen to what they have to say. It doesn't become part of our feed. We only have to have those people that we like and we agree with as our feed. Each successful social media platform comes into existence so people can escape being followed. In the end, our situation is worse than the crowd that followed Jesus, because we are not only being divided by outside forces, but often it is we ourselves who work to define ourselves against something or someone. At some point, I wonder too, will we wake up one day and realize that we too are like sheep without a shepherd? Faint-hearted, helpless, and discouraged. Borrowing from the 19th century Unitarian Church reformer Theodore Parker, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "We shall overcome because the arch of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." So this arch may be long, but it always seems to bend towards the justice side. We will see justice eventually. Given the time in which Dr. King lived, it would have been easy for him to give up hope. It wasn't just your turn-of-the-mill racist who seemed to be working against the bend towards justice, but governments. Even entire denominations were working hard to keep this nation that was founded on the principle that all are created equal from ever making the foolish claim that the Declaration of Independence a reality. Some 50 years later, Parker's original quote seems more apt than even the Dr. Martin Luther King paraphrase. Parker wrote, "I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arch is so long, my eyes reaches, but little do I see. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by the experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience. And from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice. Martin Luther King could see justice. He said the arch was far and long, but he could reach it. Parker said, I can't even see it. It's so big and so vast, it's so out of my reach, that only through divine vision, we call that faith. Only with faith do I know there'll be justice. So for Parker, it was so much bigger than even for Martin Luther King. In a nation where angry rhetoric is spilling over into actual violence, it is hard to see much hope beyond the horizon of that arch towards justice. I can honestly say that in my own thoughts at times, I wonder if their reality is any hope in the sort of peace that comes when every human being is afforded the rights and responsibilities of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Every time I turn on the news, in that moment, I fear for our young people, for my students, and for my friends' children. Will these children only know a world of bitterness, anger, cruelty, and violence? Will there ever be more to their news? Thanks be to God, it's just at that right time I am reminded to never give up hope. This week's short lesson from Romans, though, used with great damage and religious leaders who send battered wives back to their husbands and keep whole peoples from raising up against oppression because we should boast in our suffering, can and should be redeemed for the purpose of a collective suffering. For all who struggle with hope, like I often do myself, for all who wonder if justice will ever roll down, for all who lament the violence and the fear, Paul offers these words: suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character. Character produces hope, and hope does not disappoint us, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit that has been given to us. The reason we continue to hope, despite growing evidence on the contrary, is because God's love is at work in the world. We come here every Sunday to celebrate that work being done in us, in our communities, in our families, and in our world. This isn't some wild claim of this oogly googly kind of love without some kind of substance. But it's the reality that God's love has hands and feet and hearts through the Holy Spirit given to each of us all. We who claim to be disciples of Jesus, and for our community, even those who just look to Jesus as an example, are through the power of the Holy Spirit the agents of hope in the world. All who look to God, look to Christ, look to the Holy Spirit are God's agents. We are the ones who should be calling for justice. We are the ones who should be working for peace. We are the ones who should be offering compassion. We who can see only as far as the horizon, with the help of the Holy Spirit, must continue to work to bring the end of the arch into focus. In times like this, hope can be difficult. But with God's help, we will be the light of hope. Ultimately, the cure for the hopelessness of division and faint-heartedness, and a community of compassion, faith, and love. We who continue to hope and work as a just society will not be disappointed. That's the reason that this community exists. We come together every week to love on each other. It is the reason why this tree of life is a rainbow, an endless streams. Because for us, this candle and this here, this tree of life, represents the struggle for people, for all people, straight, gay, black, white, Asian, you name it, pagans. It's all in there for us. Even Christians that we think we have a hold on this country, even true Christians, those that truly love God and truly love neighbors as ourselves, because we know many Christians don't do that. But us Christians that truly do these things, we're part of this too. This is that struggle that every day we wake up and we have to say, God, please don't take my hope away. So many things. And I used to sit in the pew as a child and listen to pastors, as a Catholic, listen to priests, sit there and tell me, what is this world coming to? It's so much worse than I was. Than it was when I was little. And I told myself I'd never be that preacher. But I can't help but notice it. I can't help but notice that students at our schools share their love with one another by hating on each other. Because it's the only way they know how to communicate. And that wasn't always the case. We used to get in trouble in school because we hugged everybody. Not because we slapped everybody. You only slapped people that you didn't like. You didn't slap the people that were your family or slap the people that you were best friends with. You hugged on them. Those older teachers used to slap you with a ruler because you hugged too many people. Now they take the ruler away and we can't slap them anymore. But now they're fighting with each other. And if you really examine it, they're fighting because that's the only way they can communicate with one another. It's the only way they can actually get their point across to somebody else. Because what is it happening? It's happening in the family. That's how their parents are communicating with them. So it's so often that I just feel hopeless. But we come here to regain that hope. I light this candle every week from the never-ending flame to show that God is always at work, that God never loses hope, that God is always in control, and if we just turn and look the right way, we will find God. That's what Jesus sent his disciples out to do. He didn't send them first to the Gentiles or the Samaritans or the pagan people. He sent them to the house of Israel, to the so-called people that were the righteous, because they had been lost. They didn't understand, and all they had to do was love. So as we go through this week, as we go through this service, look at how much love is in our service. How much we're going to love on each other and walk with each other and encourage one another. And if you have any time this week, call somebody you haven't talked to in a long time and just tell them that you're thinking of them. Tell them that you love them. Tell them that you think of them every day. Because I know you have people like that. I do. Friends from a long time ago who I just assume that they know that I talk to them and talk about them, and that they're still in my heart, but yet I haven't told them. Call them and tell them. Be that witness to your people, to the people that are lost because they don't have anybody else. So this week, don't go out and talk to the non-believers. Go to those people that think they believe and think that they are true Christians, but yet haven't really loved like they should.